Georgetown is the capital of the Malaysian island of Penang, a former British trading outpost steeped in post-colonial Old Asia charm. This is a city mostly bypassed by development, partly because until the year 2000, rent control kept developers out and the old residents in. Now things are changing, and Georgetown is full of opportunities. UNESCO designated the core of the city a World Heritage Site in 2008 for its uncommonly well-preserved architecture and unique culture. This has meant renewed attention and development, much of which focuses on revitalizing rather than modernizing. Old Chinese shophouses and colonial-era mansions are being turned into everything from residences to hotels to cozy cafes. And there are still a number of historical buildings that sit derelict, waiting to be restored. It's people like architect Lawrence Lowe who are leading the charge, investing in properties here with projects in mind but primarily driven by a desire to conserve them. He made sure the bright blue Chong Fat Zi mansion was saved from demolition and eventually turned it into a hotel.
I started to think about what should Penang be, really asking the question, what will keep Penang the way it is, the way we love it? It's a home away from home for people who come to Penang, for them to sit and experience and live in the place and really go back, take a step back into history.
Christopher Ong is a native of Penang who spent 30 years in Australia working as an investment banker before he returned to Asia to restore old houses and turn them into hotels. The first thing he did back in Penang was to turn a crumbling Chinese shophouse into a home full of antiques and tropical foliage. Nearby, he's built Muntry Mews, a mid-range hotel with all the colonial-era trimmings in what used to be a series of horse stables. And he has a few other projects in development around town.
A lot of the big cities all look the same now with skyscrapers. This is very unique because in the inner city of Penang, you have these two-story houses and there's like 4,000 of these houses and people still live and work here rather than these being mowed down and skyscrapers going up. It's like a grand old lady that that doesn't need to change very much. Maybe a bit more makeup and a little bit of help, a little bit of nip and tuck.
And a number of other buildings have already received careful restoration, like Clove Hall, a former plantation manor that's now a grand but unassuming 6-room hotel. The Love Lane Boutique Hotel, another once derelict property, held its grand opening during our visit. Inside, buildings are typically long and narrow, with inner courtyards that take advantage of Penang's tropical climate, as in the home of artist Rebecca Duckett, who turned her building into an oasis in the center of town.
Georgetown, I love it. It's like a village. It really is like a village. So once you get to know all your neighbors, you really get that feeling of being in a small community. Suddenly, what we're getting is lots of young couples, creative young couples, who are renting houses and opening their own little businesses. So it's actually very, very vibrant what's happening.
And there's still plenty of room for business ventures here. Quality retail and cafes are still getting going, with a few examples dotted around the map, and the market is by no means saturated. La Bohème is an easy-to-miss French-owned cafe on a quiet street. A small shop along Armenian Street sells toys, bicycles, and other goods. Moontree 47 is a cafe on the other side of town that also shows art and offers homestays.
What has happened in the last 3 years is that you have suddenly a lot of Penangites returning to Penang. I'm one of them. What the state wants to do is basically attract more talent into Georgetown, into Penang. And one of the key things for talent is livability, obviously.
Livability is still a work in progress here. Streets can be chaotic and sidewalks scarce. But the government has embarked on initiatives to tackle these problems, including diverting traffic away from the UNESCO core zone and working with organizations to keep restoration and development on the right track. Think City works with the government giving grants, over 200 in the last 2 years, to renovate buildings and revitalize public spaces, with an emphasis on maintaining the culture here.
The regeneration process cannot be one that's top down. It must be owned by the people. There must be soul of the people being involved in shaping these things. It's easy for places to build roads and all that's just putting in investment and money. But the harder part is about the software to make sure that you have the right type of people, knowledge and skill sets to then what you call converse and coexist and what you call and shape things to take place.
Georgetown's so-called living heritage is one of its most important assets. Some describe it as reminiscent of Singapore in the 1960s, a rustic but thriving mix of cultures, languages, and cuisines, all on display in the streets. There are mosques next to Chinese temples, Indian music stores in Straits Chinese shophouses, and grand government buildings left behind by the British, all within a compact, walkable radius.
Heritage, it is a window to our soul. It describes what we are. If we can connect with the past, then we can connect with the future. Of course, you must have international standards in terms of conservation, but at the same time, heritage is finally about people. We want to be a living cultural heritage.
In Penang, for Monocle, I'm Gabriel Lee.